Zara Novak squinted through the cracked viewport of her battered salvage ship, the Rusty Venture. The desolate landscape of Epsilon 9 stretched before her, a wasteland of twisted metal and shattered dreams. This forgotten planet on the edge of known space had once been a bustling mining colony, but now it was nothing more than a graveyard of abandoned technology and broken hopes. As she guided her ship to a gentle landing, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that this run would be different. After years of scraping by amoeba finds, she was due for a big score. Her fingers danced across the control panel, shutting down the engines and activating the ship's defensive systems. In this line of work, you could never be too careful. Zara donned her environmental suit, a patchwork of mismatched parts she'd cobbled together over the years. She checked the seal on her helmet and activated her comms. "Rusty, keep an eye on things while I'm out there. Any sign of trouble, you give me a heads up." The ship's AI chirped an affirmative, its voice a comforting presence in the vast emptiness of space. Zara grabbed her toolkit and scanner before stepping out onto the planet's surface. The moment her boots touched the ground, a cloud of red dust billowed around her. As she trudged through the wreckage, her scanner beeped intermittently, picking up traces of valuable metals and rare earth elements. It was the usual haul, nothing to write home about, but Zara pressed on, driven by an instinct honed over years of salvaging. Hours passed, and the twin suns of Epsilon 9 began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the rusted remains of mining equipment. Just as Zara was about to call it a day, her scanner erupted in a cacophony of beeps and whistles. "What the hell?" she muttered, tapping the device. But the reading remained steady, pointing to something buried beneath a collapsed structure nearby. With renewed energy, Zara set to work, using her plasma cutter to slice through the twisted metal. As she cleared away the debris, her heart raced. Whatever was down there, it was unlike anything she'd encountered before. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of digging, Zara uncovered her prize. It was a small cylindrical object, no larger than her forearm. Its surface was smooth and featureless, save for a series of intricate patterns etched into the material. It wasn't made of any metal or alloy she recognized. "Rusty," Zara called over the comms, "I'm sending you a scan. What do you make of this?" There was a moment of silence before the AI responded, its usual cheery tone replaced by something akin to awe. "Zara, I can't identify the material. It's not in any of my databases. But the energy readings, they're off the charts." A grin spread across Zara's face beneath her helmet. This was it, the big score she'd been waiting for. As she reached out to grab the artifact, a voice cut through the stillness of the alien world. "I wouldn't touch that if I were you." Zara spun around, her hand instinctively moving to the blaster at her hip. Standing atop a nearby ridge were three figures in sleek environmental suits, their designs far more advanced than her cobbled-together gear. The leader, a tall woman with piercing blue eyes visible through her helmet's visor, stepped forward. "That doesn't belong to you, Salvager. Hand it over, and we'll let you walk away." Zara's mind raced. She recognized the insignia on their suits, Nova Corp, one of the biggest mining conglomerates in the galaxy. They had no legal claim to Epsilon 9, but out here on the fringes might make right. "Finders keepers," Zara shot back, her voice steadier than she felt. "This planet's abandoned. Salvage rights are clear." The Nova Corp leader laughed, a cold sound that sent shivers down Zara's spine. "Oh, sweetie, there are no rights out here. There's only what you can take and hold onto." In one fluid motion, Zara scooped up the artifact and bolted. Blaster fire erupted behind her, superheating the air as she zigzagged between piles of debris. "Rusty," she yelled into her comms. "Fire up the engines. We're leaving." The Rusty Venture's engines roared to life in the distance, a beacon of hope in the chaotic firefight. Zara's lungs burned as she sprinted across the uneven terrain, the artifact clutched tightly to her chest. A stray shot clipped her shoulder, sending her stumbling. She rolled behind the hulking remains of an old mining rig, gasping for breath. The Novacorp team was closing in, their footsteps crunching on the gravelly soil. Zara looked down at the artifact in her arms. In the heat of the moment, her fingers had brushed against one of the etched patterns. To her amazement, it began to glow with an otherworldly light. Suddenly, the air around her crackled with energy. The Novacorp team shouted in alarm as arcs of blue lightning danced across the wreckage. Zara felt a strange sensation, as if reality itself was bending around her. In a flash of blinding light, Zara found herself standing in the cargo hold of the Rusty Venture. She blinked in disbelief, her mind struggling to process what had just happened. Zara. Rusty's voice came over the ship's speakers, a note of concern evident in its synthetic tones. How did you? My sensors didn't detect you boarding. I don't know, Zara admitted, still clutching the artifact. But we need to get out of here, now. As the Rusty Venture lifted off, leaving the angry shouts of the Novacorp team behind, Zara couldn't take her eyes off the alien object in her hands. Whatever it was far more than just a valuable find. It was something that could change everything. The ship broke through Epsilon 9's atmosphere, the starfield expanding before them. Zara set a course for the nearest trade hub, her mind reeling with possibilities. She had no idea what she'd stumbled upon, but one thing was certain: her life as a simple salvager was over. As the Rusty Venture jumped to hyperspace, leaving Epsilon 9 and the Novacorp far behind, Zara felt a mix of excitement and dread. She'd wanted a big score, something to change her fortunes. But as she looked at the softly glowing artifact, she couldn't shake the feeling that she'd gotten far more than she'd bargained for. The artifact pulsed in her hands, as if responding to her thoughts. Zara took a deep breath, steeling herself for whatever came next. She was a survivor, always had been. Whatever mysteries this alien technology held, whatever dangers it might bring, she would face them head-on. As the stars streaked by outside the viewport, Zara allowed herself a small smile. For better or worse, a new adventure was beginning. And she was ready for it. The neon-drenched spaceport of Nix Station hummed with activity as Zara weaved through the crowded corridors. It had been 3 standard weeks since her narrow escape from Epsilon 9, and the weight of the alien artifact hidden in her jacket pocket felt heavier with each passing day. She'd come to Nix hoping to find answers, maybe even a buyer crazy enough to take the thing off her hands. But so far, all she'd found were more questions and a growing sense that she was in way over her head. As she rounded a corner, a news holo caught her eye. The anchor's voice cut through the ambient noise of the station. And in other news, Novacorp has announced a substantial reward for information leading to the recovery of stolen property from one of their abandoned mining operations. The corporation urges anyone with information to come forward. Zara's stomach dropped. They were getting closer. She quickened her pace, headed for the dingy bar where she'd arranged to meet her latest contact. The Rusty Venture was docked nearby, prepped for a quick getaway if things went south. These days, Zara always assumed they would. The bar, ironically named The Last Resort, was a dive even by Nix standards. Zara slipped inside, her eyes scanning the dimly lit room. In a back booth, a hooded figure sat alone, nursing a glass of something that glowed an unhealthy shade of green. Zara slid into the seat across from the stranger. "You Mira?" she asked, keeping her voice low. The figure pushed back their hood, revealing a face that was decidedly not human. Mira's skin was a pale blue, her eyes solid black orbs that seemed to absorb light. A Cerulean, one of the oldest spacefaring races in the galaxy. "You have something of interest, I believe," Mira said, her voice a melodic whisper. Zara hesitated, then slowly reached into her pocket. She placed the artifact on the table between them, keeping it mostly concealed beneath her hand. "What can you tell me about this?" Mira's eyes widened, a flicker of recognition passing across her alien features. "Where did you find this?" she breathed. Before Zara could answer, the bar's entrance slammed open. A team of heavily armed individuals stormed in, their weapons trained on the patrons. Zara recognized the Novacorp insignia on their armor. "Nobody move," the lead enforcer shouted. "We're looking for a stolen piece of Novacorp property. Anyone found aiding or abetting the thief will be treated as an accomplice." Panic flooded Zara's system. She locked eyes with Mira, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. In one fluid motion, the cerulean grabbed the artifact and slipped it into a hidden pocket in her robes. Chaos erupted in the bar as patrons scrambled to get out of the line of fire. Zara vaulted over the table, using the confusion to make a break for the back exit. She heard shouts and the sound of blaster fire behind her, but didn't dare look back. She burst out into a narrow alleyway, her heart pounding in her ears. "Rusty," she yelled into her comm. "Start the engines. We're leaving." As she sprinted towards the docking bay, a figure materialized out of the shadows, blocking her path. Zara skidded to a halt, reaching for her blaster. "Wait," the figure said, holding up its hands. "I'm not here to hurt you." In the dim light of the alley, Zara could make out the figure's features. It was humanoid in shape, but its skin had a metallic sheen, and its eyes glowed with an inner light. An android. "Who are you?" Zara demanded, keeping her hand on her weapon. "My name is Nexus," the android replied, "and I'm here to help you. That artifact you found, it's far more important than you realize, and far more dangerous." The sound of approaching footsteps echoed down the alley. Zara glanced over her shoulder, torn between flight and curiosity. "We don't have much time," Nexus urged. "Come with me if you want to survive, and if you want answers." Against her better judgment, Zara nodded. "Lead the way." Nexus grabbed her hand, and suddenly the world around them blurred. Zara felt a sensation of extreme acceleration, and then, just as quickly, it stopped. She found herself standing in a sleek ship unlike anything she'd ever seen before. "What? How did you do that?" Zara gasped, trying to get her bearings. "Short-range teleportation," Nexus explained, moving to the ship's controls. "A little trick I picked up. Now, hold on. We need to get out of here before Novacorp locks down the entire station." As the ship detached from its hidden docking clamps and slipped away from Nick's station, Zara's mind raced. "Wait, what about my ship, the Rusty Venture?" "I'm sorry," Nexus said, genuine regret in its synthetic voice. "But we couldn't risk it. Novacorp would have been tracking it. Don't worry, I've sent instructions to your A. It'll rendezvous with us later." Zara slumped into a nearby seat, the adrenaline of their escape beginning to wear off. "All right, you said you have answers. Start talking. What's so special about that artifact? And who are you, really?" Nexus turned to face her, its glowing eyes seeming to look right through her. "The artifact you found is called the Cipher. It's part of an ancient alien technology created by a race that vanished long before humans ever left their home planet. As for who I am, I'm its guardian, or at least I was. Was. The Cipher was stolen centuries ago. I've been searching for it ever since, and now, thanks to you, I'm close to finally completing my mission. But we're not the only ones after it. Novacorp is just the tip of the iceberg." Zara's head spun with the implications. "So what does this Cipher do? Why is it so important?" Nexus was quiet for a moment, as if weighing how much to reveal. "It's a key," it finally said. "A key to unimaginable power. In the right hands, it could usher in an era of peace and prosperity for the entire galaxy. In the wrong hands, it could destroy everything," Zara finished, a chill running down her spine. Nexus nodded sullenly. "Exactly. And right now, it's in the hands of your cerulean friend, Mira." Zara cursed under her breath. She'd been played. "So what now?" "We track her down." "Now," Nexus said, turning back to the ship's controls, "we stay one step ahead of everyone who's trying to kill us. And we find a way to get the Cipher back before it's too late." As the stars streaked by outside the viewport, Zara felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. She'd wanted adventure, a chance to be more than just another salvager scraping by on the fringes of space. Well, she'd certainly gotten her wish. The ship's communication system crackled to life, an urgent message coming through on all frequencies. Nexus frowned, adjusting the controls to clear up the signal. A familiar voice filled the cabin, and Zara's blood ran cold. It was the Nova Corp leader from Epsilon 9. Attention, citizens of the Galactic Alliance. This is Commander Vex of Nova Corp. We are in pursuit of dangerous fugitives who have stolen classified technology. These individuals are to be considered armed and extremely dangerous. Any information leading to their capture will be generously rewarded. Remember, your cooperation ensures the safety and security of our galaxy. Zara and Nexus exchanged grim looks. The message repeated, broadcasting their descriptions across every settled world and space station in the sector. They're not going to stop, are they? Zara asked, already knowing the answer. Nexus shook its head. No, they're not. And Nova Corp is just the beginning. Once word gets out about the cipher, every power-hungry faction in the galaxy will be gunning for us. Zara took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. Then I guess we better come up with one hell of a plan. As their ship accelerated to light speed, leaving the known star systems behind, Zara couldn't help but feel a twinge of excitement beneath her fear. She was no longer just a salvager. She was now part of something bigger, something that could change the fate of the entire galaxy. The pursuit had begun, and Zara was determined to see it through to the end, whatever that might be. The Reckoning. The command center of Nova Corp's flagship, the Indomitable, hummed with activity. Holographic displays flickered with real-time data from across the galaxy, each one tracking the elusive fugitives who had dared to challenge the corporation's power. Commander Vex stood at the center of it all, her steely gaze fixed on the largest display. It showed the projected path of Zara and Nexus's ship, based on their last known coordinates. Status report, Vex barked, her voice cutting through the ambient noise of the command center. A young officer stepped forward, his uniform crisp and spotless. We've narrowed down their potential destinations to 3 systems, Commander. Our forces are moving to intercept. Vex nodded, a cruel smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Excellent. And what of our special asset? The officer hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. The cerulean Mira is ready to deploy. But Commander, are you sure it's wise to trust? That will be all, Lieutenant. Vex cut him off, her tone brooking no argument. As the officer retreated, Vex turned her attention back to the holomap. Soon, she thought. Soon the power of the cipher would be hers, and Nova Corp would reign supreme over the entire galaxy. Light years away, on the outer rim of charted space, Zara and Nexus's ship dropped out of hyperspace. Before them loomed a massive space station, its design unlike anything Zara had ever seen. It seemed to be built into the very fabric of space itself, shimmering and shifting, as if it wasn't entirely there. What is this place? Zara breathed, awe evident in her voice. Nexus's eyes glowed softly as it regarded the station. This is the Nexus Point, the place where it all began, and where it must end. As they approached, Zara couldn't shake a feeling of unease. Are you sure Mira will bring the cipher here? Nexus nodded. The cipher's power calls to its wielder, drawing them to this place. It's part of its design, a failsafe created by its makers. Mira may think she's in control, but the cipher is guiding her actions. Their ship docked with the ancient station, the airlock cycling open with a hiss of equalizing pressure. As they stepped inside, the corridors seemed to shift and change around them, responding to some unseen force. Stay close, Nexus warned. The station's defenses are still active. It won't distinguish between friend and foe. They made their way deeper into the heart of the station, guided by Nexus's innate connection to the place. Zara's hand never strayed far from her blaster, every shadow seeming to hide potential threats. Finally, they emerged into a vast chamber. At its center stood a pedestal, glowing with an otherworldly light. And there, placing the cipher onto the pedestal, was Mira. "Stop," Zara shouted, raising her weapon. Mira turned, her black eyes widening in surprise. "You're too late," she said, a note of triumph in her melodic voice. "The power of the cipher will be mine, and my people will once again rule the stars." Before either Zara or Nexus could react, a bolt of energy lanced out from the shadows, striking Mira squarely in the chest. She crumpled to the ground, the cipher rolling away from her outstretched hand. Commander Vex stepped into the light, a high-powered blaster rifle cradled in her arms. A squad of heavily armed Novacorp soldiers filed in behind her, their weapons trained on Zara and Nexus. "I must thank you," Vex said, her voice dripping with false sincerity. "You led us right to the prize. Now, step away from the cipher, or I'll be forced to take more permanent measures." Zara's mind raced, trying to find a way out of this impossible situation. But before she could act, Nexus stepped forward. "You don't understand what you're dealing with, Commander," the android said, its voice calm but insistent. "The cipher's power isn't meant for any one person or faction to control. It's a responsibility, not a weapon." Vex laughed, a cold, mirthless sound. "Spare me your sanctimonious drivel, machine. I've come too far to be stopped by the likes of you." She strode forward, reaching for the cipher. The moment her fingers touched its surface, the entire chamber erupted in blinding light. Zara shielded her eyes, hearing screams of pain and confusion from the Novacorp soldiers. When the light faded, Zara saw Vex standing at the pedestal, the cipher now pulsing with energy in her hands. But something was wrong. Vex's eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and her skin seemed to be shifting, as if something beneath was trying to break free. "Yes," Vex hissed, her voice distorted and inhuman. "I can feel it. The power of 1,000 stars, the knowledge of civilizations long dead. It's all mine." Nexus turned to Zara, urgency in its glowing eyes. "We have to stop her. The cipher wasn't meant to be used like this. It's tearing her apart, and if we don't act quickly, it could tear apart the very fabric of space-time." Zara nodded, pushing aside her fear. This was bigger than her, bigger than any of them. "What do we do?" "The station's core," Nexus said, pointing to a pulsing light at the far end of the chamber. "It's the only thing powerful enough to contain the cipher's energy, but someone has to take it there." Zara understood the implication. It was a suicide mission. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for what she knew she had to do. "I'll do it." Nexus shook its head. "No, Zara. This is my purpose, what I was created for. You still have a life to live." Before Zara could argue, Nexus was moving. With inhuman speed, it tackled Vex, wresting the cipher from her grasp. The android's form seemed to shimmer and distort as it came into contact with the artifact, but it held on. "Nexus, wait," Zara cried out, but it was too late. The android sprinted towards the station's core, dodging energy blasts from the recovering Novacorp soldiers. Vex screamed in rage, her form continuing to twist and change as the cipher's power coursed through her. Zara watched in horror and awe as Nexus reached the core. With one final look back, its eyes meeting Zara's for a brief moment, the android plunged the cipher into the swirling energy. The resulting explosion of light and sound was unlike anything Zara had ever experienced. She felt as if she was being torn apart and put back together, her very atoms scattering and reforming. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. Zara found herself lying on the chamber floor, her ears ringing and her vision blurry. As she struggled to her feet, she saw that the Novacorp soldiers were in similar states of disarray. Commander Vex lay unconscious nearby, her form once again fully human. The cipher and Nexus were gone. As Zara's senses returned, she became aware of a new presence in the chamber. Figures of pure light materialized around them, their forms vaguely humanoid, but clearly not of any known species. One of the beings stepped forward, its voice resonating in Zara's mind rather than her ears. "The cycle is complete. The test has been passed. Test. Zara managed to croak out. What test? The being's form shimmered, almost seeming to smile. The test of worthiness. For millennia, we have watched and waited, seeking those who would use the power of the cipher responsibly. Your friend, the one you called Nexus, proved that such beings still exist in this galaxy. Zara felt a pang of loss at the mention of Nexus. Is he gone? The being's form pulsed gently. Not gone, transformed. Your friend has joined us, becoming part of something greater. The power of the cipher is now safely contained, as it was always meant to be. As the implications of the being's words sank in, Zara couldn't help but laugh. All of this, the chase across the galaxy, the battles, the intrigue, had been part of some cosmic test, and somehow they'd passed. The being continued, its voice filled with ancient wisdom. The time has come for us to reveal ourselves to the galaxy once more. There is much work to be done, many wrongs to right. We would ask for your help in this endeavor, Zara Novak. You have proven yourself worthy. Zara looked around the chamber, at the dazed Novacorp soldiers, at the unconscious form of Commander Vex. She thought of all she'd been through, of the life she'd left behind, and she realized that there was only one answer she could give. I'm in, she said, a smile spreading across her face. Where do we start? As the beings of light began to share their knowledge and plans, Zara felt a sense of purpose she'd never known before. She was no longer just a salvager, scraping by on the fringes of space. She was part of something greater, something that could shape the very future of the galaxy. The adventure, it seemed, was only just beginning. Epilogue. Years later, on a bustling spaceport at the edge of known space, a young salvager heard tales of the legendary Zara Novak. They spoke of her adventures, of the ancient power she'd helped contain, and of the positive changes that had swept across the galaxy in the years since. The salvager listened, wide-eyed, as grizzled spacers recounted how Novacorp had been dismantled, its vast resources redistributed to help those in need. They told of how knowledge and technology, long hoarded by the powerful, was now freely shared among all species. And sometimes, if the storytellers had had a bit too much to drink, they'd whisper about sightings of Zara herself. They said she still roamed the stars, accompanied by beings of pure light, righting wrongs and helping those in need. As the young salvager left the spaceport, climbing aboard their own battered ship, they couldn't help but smile. Perhaps one day, they too would find an artifact that would change everything. Perhaps they too would have a chance to make a difference. After all, in a galaxy full of wonders and dangers, anything was possible. You just had to be brave enough to reach out and grab it.